A warm welcome. This is Enterprise Morning, reaching you from Enterprise Television. I am Henry Igwebike.
And I'm Choma Okoye.
All right, we'll be going first on our newspaper headlines today, and right after that will be our main conversation also for today, while we get everything all produced and sorted out for you. Please do well to be part of our community. Have a say in what we say. You can always reach us and find us at Enterprise TV News.com. You may also like, comment, and follow us on all our social media platforms at Enterprise TV7. With us today to do good to all, we have newspapers, if possible. We head up to our main conversation. Cyril Abaku is right here in the studios with us, and Barrister Van Sofeli. Good morning to you, gentlemen, and welcome to Enterprise Morning today. Morning. All right, so let's kick start today with the first daily on our desk. And what is it?
We're starting with the Vanguard newspaper. And on the Vanguard newspaper, you find Abiodun approved 77,000 minimum wage for Ogun workers. Details are on page 14.
Yes, the big story that made Vanguard newspaper headline today is how Libya held the Eagles hostage in the disused airport for 15 hours.
Okay, moving on. Arrest warrant. You must honor invitations from Senate. Presidency tells HOSR heads of MDAs.
All right, we equally have an interesting story here. Federal government plans to revamp the petrol pipeline distribution system across the country, and that's coming from Lokobiri.
Okay, moving on. Maiduguri Airport to start international operations January. That is coming from KM.
All right, the big story here, of course, that we might be looking at discussing this morning. Darkness looms as national grid collapses a sixth time this year. Barrister Van Sofeli. Let's talk about this. We equally have another interesting story here that I would love us to take.
Yeah, we have Nigerians super rich to pay 25% tax by coming from the federal government, and details are on page 21.
Yes, so but just before we get into that, let's talk about the national grid collapse. Sixth time this year. It started from Muhammad Buhari. We have transitioned to Bola Ahmed Tinubu. We're still having grid collapses in Nigeria. Interestingly, Barrister Van Sofeli, all throughout the war happening between Lebanon and Israel, with the bombardments every other day, light is still there. But here we have Nigeria with no war, but still will experience collapses here and there in our national grid.
Well, it tells you that we're never prepared for this issue of electricity, effective production of electricity. We're not doing anything close to what small countries, even in African hemisphere, do. We have said this repeatedly. I mean, I did my master's in energy resources. Electricity law was one of the areas that we dealt with effectively, and we all came to that conclusion that no country in the world have sustainable electricity that packs our entire population and plug them into one grid. Okay, it's not done like that. Okay, you will always have national blackout if the entire country is fixated with just a grid that.
Please fleshing that out for us. When you say everyone into a particular
the entire country,
fleshing that out.
Yeah, the entire country is plugged into a national grid. Mm-hmm. You understand? You are going to be having collapse because this is a grid that was constructed or built a long time ago. Mm-hmm. As at the time it was constructed and built, the population was less. Society had not expanded this way. Mm-hmm. Okay, there were machineries were not as much as they are now. Okay, usage, maintenance, and all that. Okay, so today what people do because of the fact that we're not practicing federalism. All you needed to do, which has also been passed into law, but the states have not complied with the legal framework. You know, Buhari signed that every state now can generate electricity on their own. Okay, so it's now time for different states to sever themselves out of the national grid and then create their own state grid, if necessary, or create what they call off-grid operations, where you are using solar, for example. Some people are on grid, some are on solar, some are on wind, some are on, that's how a federal structure works. The proximity to your source of electricity is what you use. If you are in the confluence city, Lokoja, for example, where you have the Kanji Dam, those ones will be plugged to that. Those who are in the far north, where the sun, they will be plugged to solar. Those who are in area where the wind is hostile, they will be plugged to the wind. Okay, that's how it works now. So at no point in time will everybody collapse. Or would the nature, at no point will everybody be plugged into one source of power generation.
But what is hampering it? What's hampering what you just talked about now? States allowed to create their own source of energy, but still not effective.
The respective states have failed to come out with a legal framework, even after a law has been passed. The Attorney General of the different states should advise their governors. If you look at the third schedule of the Constitution, paragraph 14, that part already had given the states the responsibility to generate electricity and distribute same in areas not covered by the national grid. Okay, so what that means, therefore, is that a state, a local government, a community can pull out of the national grid, okay, by that law, and create their own source of power generation. You understand? The law before and the law now have given us that responsibility to do so. But the governors are not looking for that direction. They are talking about local government autonomy. They are talking about derivation. They are talking about IGR. But the sustainability of a state is tied to her economic viability in terms of power generation. That will create jobs and improve businesses. Okay? So now they fail to invest in that area. That's the problem I'm having. So last night, in fact, I don't know anyone whose phone was still alive after 9 p.m. last night. You can imagine one strike and everybody's stranded. So what it means is dangerous. We should have alternative means. Not all of us should be on the grid. Maybe you can just fix all the industries on the grid. The homes and all that should be fixed somewhere. Then maybe churches, whatever, you fix somewhere. Don't fix everybody in one grid. You're gonna have collapse.
Thank you.
And that's what happened yesterday. So it is important that we look at this off-grid management and then use these alternative means to,
Thank you, Barrister Evans. So Lavako, it's one thing to look at the off-grid management. It's another thing for Nigerians to be able to embrace it. I've forgotten this particular country, but when you go there, they use wind to actually generate the electricity. A lot of countries are doing. Yes, the renewable energy. Now, what is one thing that Nigerians, especially the businesses, because anything I've got an advantage, I've got a disadvantage. What is the disadvantage of Nigerians embracing this? How would businesses react?
So, renewable energy on an industrial scale is still something that is being tested out globally.
Very well, true.
For example, if you have solar in your house, you most likely will put it on your AC, your fridge, and so on. But on the lighter things, right? So this is about sustainable energy. Sometimes you can just keep you going until you're able to. Now, let me take it off from where I started. I don't know whether you ever had before that. When you generate power from the state, you have to take national grid. Okay. And this is the best way to explain it. As soon as we're just on this table, and it's a dining table, right? You bring the pot of soup in a bowl, each of us will scoop, or somebody scoops for one of us. Now, we are doing that. For four of us, we don't need a bowl. Just a little bowl is fine. But now, and that was when that national grid, that bowl is a national grid. It was built when we were just on the table. Today, our cousins have come, our in-laws have come, our neighbors are looking up to us. That bowl, what Barrister was saying is this. He said that let's even have more bowls. I said 10 people to a bowl, 5, so that way we don't all come and clamp on one little thing that cannot satisfy everybody. Because by the time 6 of us would have scooped, the thing would have been finished. Now, before now, states could generate power actually, but they couldn't distribute.
Okay.
That is supply. Distribution, that is giving, all the companies we do with Kona are called discos. The distributors, distribution companies, discos. So before now, governors who generate power in, let's say, Port Harcourt or Lagos, then feed it into the so-called national grid. The national grid will now, maybe from Lagos, now have to send that power to Maiduguri. On the road, if they generated 12 units, before travel from Lagos to Maiduguri, 5 would have been lost on the road. In Maiduguri, they will now have 7. Then that 7, the distribution company will now think of who and where to supply that power to. What Buhari did was he signed the bill into law that said, let us federalize this thing or decentralize this thing by way of saying that, look, each state should be able to generate, transmit, and also, importantly, distribute. Which means that we are no longer bound by law to be tied to the national grid.
Okay.
So, what means that you're welcome to be in our house, but you're not even forced to eat what you're cooking. If you can find a corner and do your thing. Before Jonathan left, they were trying to plant wind farms in Katina. The president came. It was even in his own home state. They abandoned all those things. Now, but state governors are not willing. He was saying that the AGs are not even looking at advising their governors on a legal framework, even if it means bringing companies that can come and invest. Right? So, okay, generate for us and distribute. They are not willing. If we are talking national grid collapse, what has Ondo State got to do with it? With all the sun they have. So much so that they even use the sun as their symbol, as their logo.
But Cyril, let's not forget here, this is very capital intensive. The geometric power in Aba cost $800 million. You could imagine that sum of money. So do you think a state, any state, maybe apart from Lagos and Rivers,
all the money that have been stolen in this country could have given us free power for the next 100 years. So when they say it is capital intensive, they should bring all the money that they stole. But number 2 is, that one is geometric power. Are you aware that there's a young Nigerian that invented the generator that does not require fuel, and said that he has been getting death calls? Why hasn't his governor, or any governor for that matter, called him and said, welcome? Now there's a university opening spree. Almost every state has a university.
Some states are buying university.
Like Giga, why don't you gather the nation's best brains and say this invention, can we look at it? This was how Britain and Co survived. During World War II, Hitler's machines were unbeatable. What did Winston Churchill call the place? They went to a place called Bletchley Park. They got historians, psychologists, mathematicians. They put them in that place. Britain's best brains. In that yard, they manufactured a machine that began to intercept Nazi signals. And they are telling the Allied armies what Hitler was planning. So when they say these things are not doable, get the best brains. Geometric power was this geometric power that Professor Naji is even, when did he do it? As I'm talking to you today now, there are advances in that area. So get people that can sit down and say, how best can we go about it? And I'm telling you, we'll get a solution.
Thank you, sir.
But the fact that for many years we were all relying on the national, it is been a national security risk. Let me tell you this: if a proper when Labour shut down the national grid, that made us like effective. But that man came and said, it's treason. And I said, what are these people saying? Any major enemy of Nigeria can infiltrate that place and bomb it. What are you going to do? The only nation will be in darkness. Is that what Nigeria wants?
Internet will off. Everything will off.
So it's a national security risk. Those times have gone. You should allow. Look, this national grid. What we're saying there. So this thing we're talking about is simple. 2 states can even come together. We say let's have something that can power our states, and they can have what are groups like Dawn Commission doing? Development agenda for Western Nigeria. What are they doing?
Thank you,
They should have this kind of initiatives. Get their scholars from UI, IFE, and so on together. Let the governors supply funding, and let the thing work for the people.
Thank you, sir.
For me, this is the way to go.
All right. So while we talk about that, let's take a look at this particular story. Nigeria super rich to pay tax, 25% tax by the federal government, and I have it to school. Yes, so you can take that.
Nigeria's wealthiest citizens will be subject to personal income tax PIT rate of 25% starting next year. Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms, announced this during the ongoing NES 30 conference in Abuja.
Pastor Basufeli, I'm excited.
personal income tax administration in Nigeria is very weak.
Okay.
I don't know why they target personal income tax, because personal income tax is this tax that you have to compile yourself and go pay.
Okay.
It's not indirect tax. If it's VTA, nobody can dodge VTA. Value added tax. As you are buying, you are paying it. Expensive tax you are doing. But personal income tax, it takes a proper administration, the FIRS, to monitor who are the super rich in Nigeria and what is the threshold.
Exactly.
Those that have investment of how much. You understand? They need to map it out. It's not just to come and say they will start to pay, because the rich, they evade tax a lot, because we don't really have stringent penalty for non-compliance or tax evasion. If it's in the UK, where you will go to jail, or where you will spend the rest of your life in some kind of miserable condition, what they will do to you, people will comply. But here, before you ask them to go and strengthen the law first. That and in Nigeria, do rich people go to prison? Common Bobrisky, that is a nuisance, was able to evade the prison term and when they kept him somewhere. So super rich will go there and buy that prison and maybe put the inmates in the prison. So if you want this thing to work, you must have developed a system that can hold the super rich to account first. That's what you need to do. So when you now have that, you now have a law that is stringent, that can be applied against them for non-compliance before you activate that thing. Otherwise, if you do it, they will not pay. The Lebanese, the Indians, they have companies, Qatar Ojodu here, they have companies, no soundboard. Because they don't want to pay company income tax. They don't want to pay personal income tax. They only want to pay those tax that they cannot do, you cannot evade, which is the indirect tax system. So, you see, and let me tell you something. Nigeria is not going to change with the production of oil and the sale of crude. Nigeria cannot become rich and wealthy. And its taxation must form a fulcrum. Taxation is, go and check every developed country that is working. In the US, is anything you buy, there's tax attached to it. Anything you buy, as low as chicken or anything, there's a tax attached. That's why you see them in the US, when they buy things, they keep the slip. They keep all that slip, because you can pack all that slip when you don't have money and go to government and give government. See what I've spent so far on tax, and they give you rebate.
Now,
Thank you.
yes, Cecily, please. I think it's very important. I do not know if it's because we borrowed the presidential system of government we have from America, and that's why sometimes we behave in simpatico with what they do. In America, the very, very rich people, they evade tax. Now, let me read this for you. Wealthy families buy stocks, bonds, real estate, art, or other high-value assets. It strategically holds on to these assets and allows them to grow in value. The family won't owe income tax on the growth in the asset value unless it sells them and makes a profit. Now, with that happening in America, why is it difficult not to have that in Nigeria?
No. Barrister, you're a tax consultant. I'm trying to pick a term. There is tax evasion, and then there's another one, tax. That is when you're able to maneuver the law without breaking the law, and then you're not paying tax.
It's both evasion.
Okay, so there's good evasion and there's bad evasion. There's something that Americans do, well, people all over the world, right? They evade tax, it is one thing, but they are not paying tax is another thing entirely. So if you break the law and not pay tax, which is criminal, right? But there's also, like for example, in Nigeria, by law, if you come to invest in an area that the economy is in need, right? For the first 5 years, you won't pay taxes. It happened with telecoms. These people that came to because
if you take life insurance too,
yes,
there are certain taxes you are exempted from paying in Nigeria.
Yeah, so there are things like that. Now, what I was wondering was in like in the nation of America, they do a number of things. Some government come and say we are cutting taxes. You know, the Nigerian wealthy, we don't know how they became billionaires. We don't know.
There's no ethical billionaire anywhere in the world.
Because, you know what? I mean, somebody that does not have up to 10 employees is a billionaire in Nigeria. I don't understand how they do it. But, government will say, well, because the rich, I mean, the wealthy, they are investment minded. So sometimes government will say, let's cut taxes in the hopes that they will reinvest that money in the economy. They will create jobs. Yes. If you give a poor man tax rebate, what does he do with it? He will buy more sweets, buy more children, buy more
liability.
buy more liability. But there are those who you give tax in the hopes that they are going to reinvest and add value to the economy. So government can also look at that because our economy is in need of all the money. There is no guarantee anywhere that when I don't know which consultant is telling them to cut 25% of the super rich. Where will the money go to? In our country, when government takes all this money, we don't know what you can't vouch that they're going to use it to do anything.
The system is not screwed to handle that.
So you will take all the taxes. What are who is going to take the money?
Well, while we'll take a look at that, and of course, let's move on to other matters in the daily. I just hope the likes of Tony Elumelu, Dangote, who have been saddled with the opportunity of running our economy, would obey such order.
Maybe this is part of the policy that Tinubu talked about, widening the tax net. Is it widening against these people, and how would they get it enforced? It's not going to work.
All right, so let's go to Daily Trust just before we wind up today. The big story there.
Yeah, we have the big story. A 15-year-old student sues Education Minister JAM NUC over admission policy. Two writers to that particular story says 18-year admission threshold discriminatory. We are not aware of case yet. That is coming from the ministry. All
right, so we have on the bottom street there a BDP governors meeting on Damagum's fate deadlocked.
Okay, over 2 million people displaced as 200 Kogi communities flooded. That is coming from the government. All
right, so let's look at this. It is your area of forte. A 15-year-old student sues Education Ministry, JAMB, NUC over admission policy. I know we've talked that before, but bring us up to speed on what this particular case looks like. Yes. And where do you think it is headed for?
We're actually on our way to court on that matter. Okay, before the minister came out and refuted it. And also because nobody so far have suffered, they just made a pronouncement. Nobody so far has suffered that wrong. Okay, so that's why we're waiting. But I get the idea of that case. It's right, they can still go to court on the basis of that pronouncement by FEC and all that. They can go to court to get a restraining order. Because the Constitution says that in section 46, that if your right is been unlikely to be breached. This is a likelihood because they are saying it. So you can file a case on the basis of the preemptive understanding of your right being breached. And that is it. Now, you don't need to wait for your rights to be breached. You can now file to restrain the adverse party from having it breached. And that's correct. So it is important. The ministry are saying they are not aware of a case yet. It's possible they've not been served. Okay, until they are served, they will not know. But somebody can go to court, and when you file, you call the press, do a press conference
before you.
Yes, yeah, you can do that before you serve, or because when you are filing a case, when you are commencing a suit, okay, it is the court that will actually serve the adverse party. You understand? So whether the court has gone to serve or not, you can begin to make statements on the fact that you have gone to court. It's a very wrong policy. We all know it's a very wrong policy. People cannot be trapped. Everybody will not attain a particular age where they can access. People with extraordinary abilities should go ahead and do what they want to do. And I believe that the court should restrain them from that because it's not right.
I'm sorry, Labako, please can you just add this to your pattern share because this was just
I totally agree with you. It's not a tit for tat thing, but it's a moral question. Okay. Should we allow children of even younger age to marry? Because the law does not stop them from getting married. And then prevent older ones from going to school. Because our own warped perception of right and wrong tells us to stop them from going to school. What is source for the goods? It's us for the Ghana.
Okay,
Very
thank you.
true. All right, that's just about the size for our segment today. We'd love to say thank you to Cyril Abaku, Barrister Bansufedi.
Thank you.
Thank you as always for being part of our show today. And when we return, Nigeria boycotts AFCON qualifier after the Libya ordeal. That in a bit, please don't go anywhere.
We'll be right back.